Hey everyone, my name is Sydney, and today I'm going to be talking about a few elements from the contemporary film Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, this film came out in 2016, and is actually a sequel to the 2013 film Man of Steel. Now, this film serves as a giant what if for these two DC comic book characters, and what would happen if the circumstances arose where they found themselves fighting each other. And spoiler, they don't stay fighting each other for long. They actually band together to help take down the film's true big bad, Lex Luthor, and his creation of Doomsday. Now, not only did director Zack Snyder bring a much darker tone to the story, he introduced a level of complexity with these characters we haven't seen before through the use of symbols, archetypes, and the score. Now let's take a look at how this film used symbolism to create an incredibly complex narrative that plays out on multiple levels, primarily a religious one. And although the relationship between religion and superheroes may be nothing new, what is incredibly interesting about this piece is how close Zack Snyder comes to blurring the line. Is this a fight between Batman and Superman, or man versus God? So let's dive into point 1, the use of the four horsemen to symbolize the end of days. The Book of Revelations describes the first horseman as a conqueror bent on the quest, which makes it fitting that the first horse would appear before Batman at the beginning of the film during the incident that would spark his pursuit of Superman. The second horseman is said to incite men to slay each other. Incredibly fitting, it would appear before Lex Luthor, who orchestrates the battle between Batman and Superman. During the first official conversation between Superman and Batman, we see a third horseman, who is said to be holding scales. The final horse appears at the boiling point when Batman decides he must take down Superman, which is fitting as the fourth horseman is described as Death himself. Point 2 under symbolism comes from Batman's decision to use a spear to kill Superman. This is a direct symbol from the crucifixion of Christ, as the Romans stabbed Jesus in the side with a spear as he hung on the cross. This is a symbol Snyder himself has confirmed, posting on his social media, "Why with all the technology would Batman build a spear? Well, here's why." Spoiler, but the third talking point comes from the manner in which Superman dies. In killing Doomsday, Superman himself is killed, which is reminiscent to the battle between Jesus and the devil in the Book of Genesis. In this battle, the devil is said to present himself as a serpent that strikes Jesus in the heel with a fatal dose of venom. At the same time though, Jesus is said to crush the serpent's head beneath his foot, ultimately killing them both. Our fourth point, and the final one for symbolism, comes after Superman dies. As the camera pans out, we see a wooden cross in the rubble, which is a symbol analogous for the death of Christ, or in this version, the death of Superman. Moving on to our second point, let's talk about how this film evolved classic archetypes. Being such long-standing characters from the classic era, both Batman and Superman have not only defined what it means to be an anti-hero and a hero, but also how specifically Batman operates as an anti-hero and Superman operates as a hero. And in true contemporary fashion, Zack Snyder challenges these definitions and evolves them into something new. This brings us to point 5, Batman as an executioner. Within the broken system that is Gotham, Batman operates in the shadows to intimidate criminals in a way that the police just can't. We've always known this meant increased violence, but we know from the Batman canon that he won't kill. Well, enter Zack Snyder's Batman. The Batman starts actively branding the criminals he brings in, which is a death sentence for them in jail, and he knows it. And not only did the Superman have a problem with this, but so did viewers, wondering why did Batman cross that line? Well, the evolution comes from Snyder, who believes the idea of a crime fighter who never kills people is ridiculous. Now let's talk about point 6, which is what happens with the character of Superman. Snyder takes Superman off his pedestal as the savior and turns him into the troubled god, blotting out the sun above us. As the story unfolds, we see Superman question his hope in humanity, which is an impressive feat considering he wears a symbol of hope on his chest. One source phrases it, "This isn't the superhero movie your kids deserve." He's not a cheerful reminder that helping others is always the right thing, that power doesn't have to corrupt. And more on Superman, let's dive into point 7, and how his death also challenges the hero archetype. Jungian analysts define the denial of death as one of the hero's specialties. They also define this as one of the biggest downfalls of the hero archetype, saying we do not face our limitations, we become inflated and cannot recognize our true power. And it would seem that this film paid attention to that with the death of Superman. At least for now. And now let's move into our final topic, which is the musical score, and just how much it really adds to the narrative. So once again, seeing as Batman and Superman have been around for a little bit, it's no surprise that they've been at the center of a few different film scores and gone through multiple versions of character themes. So let's zero in on point 8, which is the evolution of the Superman theme, and what the new one might suggest about the character and the world in which he exists. To this day, I think the most iconic theme is still John Williams' 1978 Superman theme, and The Guardian claims that this tune is triumphant, but also cheesy, but at the time, this is what a Superman movie called for. However, the world in which Superman exists today has changed considerably. Storylines are much more complex and often darker. The Guardian defines the new era of Superman as much more atmospheric and realistic, and it requires a subtlety that just isn't there with the original score. I mean, could you imagine that there today? It doesn't quite work anymore. For point 9, let's talk about Wonder Woman for a minute. She has the same update, but it's also much more reflective of her character now. Wonder Woman comes from the realm of the Amazons, so it makes sense that her theme would have a much more primal feel. This is miles away from the old one, which is basically the intro to an American buddy cop TV show. Wonder Woman! Alright, now it's time to round things out with our 10th and final point, where we'll be looking not only at Lex Luthor's theme, but its relationship to Superman's. As I mentioned before, Lex Luthor is the true villain of this film, which isn't surprising considering that Lex Luthor and Superman have been duking it out for years. And this film made sure to pay homage to that relationship by linking the two's character themes. If you'll listen closely, you might realize that Lex Luthor's theme song is actually just a warped backwards perversion of Superman's. This certainly links the two characters, and it goes even farther to suggest that Lex Luthor is the foil of Superman.
And now God bends to my will.
Now let's take a listen. And with that, we come to the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.